Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly discussion series, which is hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with the University of Michigan Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, a nonprofit organization, and CMN TV, which will replay this episode on their channels, Channel 18 and WOW and Comcast. Today, I have two guests. They are members of the Iraqi and American Reconciliation Project, Dr. Azar Maluki and Kathy McKay. Welcome to our program.
Thank you, Irm. Thank you.
And we're very excited to have them because they are part of an organization that helps basically do what it says, is to reconcile Iraqi and Americans. And I've been following you guys' organization for many years. You've done amazing projects, which we'll discuss today. But first, I kind of wanted to just learn a little bit about each one of your backgrounds and see how you guys got involved with this organization. So Dr. Azar?
Thank you, Ian, and hi, everybody. My name is Azar Maloki. I am a physician from Iraq. I am a former professor at the University of Kufa in my hometown, Najaf. Najaf is kind of my hometown city. It is about 100 miles south of the capital, Baghdad. I actually traveled to the United States with my family in 2015. And joined the University of Minnesota as a research fellow from that time until recently. Actually, I've been involved with the Iraqi and American Reconciliation Project in the year of 2008, since I was in Najaf. And at that time, actually, it was something surprising that we heard of an American people who initiated this group, this peacemaker group, after the devastation that happened to the Iraqi society and Iraqi families as a result of the war at that time. So it was really exciting project. So I decided to join the activities of the IARP in Iraq. And the first of these activities was actually a form of humanitarian project where the IRB supplied Iraqi schools in Najaf with water filtration systems and other basic needs for healthy water and other basic needs for Iraqi students. So I got excited to participate more and more in this organization, and later on, I participated in the exchange professional visits supervised by the IRB that happened between the two cities of Najaf in Iraq and Minneapolis in the United States. And so I visited the Twin Cities twice in 2011 and 2013. After I relocated with my family in the United States in Minnesota, it becomes more easy to me to follow the IRB projects and participate more deeply in these projects until I was elected as a board chair in last October 2020 as a board chair of the organization.
So this started by an American community. Would that happen to be you, Kathy?
Well, I'm one of several people who, after America invaded Iraq, we were horrified and felt badly and followed things and, didn't feel like there was anything we could do. But eventually we met meeting together for a while. We came up with an idea, and there was an Iraqi American who, after Saddam went away, he moved back to Iraq from the Twin Cities. And so he was a good connection for us. And that's, so we started with the fundraising in this country for water filters. And as Azar mentioned, the water filters were purchased from a local small business person in Najaf and then installed by a local person. So we like the idea of, using local business people, funding them and everything. So we did that for about 100 different schools, I think, over a period of about 3 years. And the other thing that started happening was inviting delegations of Iraqi professionals to come and visit. And we had several delegations, Azar mentioned a couple. Many of them were professionals, doctors and engineers and lawyers, and they would come for 2 weeks and stay in people's homes. So the longtime Minnesotans really got an opportunity to talk with Iraqis, meet Iraqis, have them in their homes, do things together. And then, you know, we did projects around the Twin Cities and met with people at the University of Minnesota and the medical school and created things that the visitors were interested in learning about in America. So someplace along there, I think in 2007, we incorporated as a nonprofit, excuse me, and didn't really have money exactly to be an official organization, but we kind of worked out of our homes. And early on, we had a lot of interest from young people who were studying Arabic in some of the local colleges that wanted to volunteer and do internships with us. So really, it was a lot of young people who built the initial infrastructure of the organization and allowed us to kind of hold things together, you know, as an entity. So that was, and it was a group of probably 20 people originally. And then when we formalized into a board, there was maybe 7 or 8 came on the board. It was all longtime Minnesotans. And, you know, we'll get into this more, but as we've transitioned now, the board is over 50% Iraqis, and really the direction and the force, the momentum of the organization is on Iraqi Voices now, which is just great. And all of it helps, you know, longtime Minnesotans learn about it. And way back in the beginning, we used to say, you know, Americans just think Iraqis are terrorists. And the Iraqis would say, we only think Americans have military uniforms and come to our front doors. So we're really a long ways from that. And anyway, we'll talk more about details.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the work and the idea of creating this, because as an Iraqi American myself, I was born in Baghdad and raised in America, but when the war did happen, and even when I visited Iraq in 2000, I did get the sense where there's so much misunderstanding and misconceptions about both people. And Iraqis are oftentimes, it's just that, you know, they're always associated with you know, the religion, you know, just Islam, terrorism, and Saddam. And, you know, and there's no story past that. And it's hard to see them as people beyond that description that's played out in the media. So the stuff that you have done, you know, you have 3 main programs that you focus on, including, which I love that there's so much arts and culture in your projects and programs. One is the Iraqi Art Project, Humanitarian Projects for Peace, People to People. There's also the Iraqi Voices. And if you can just tell us a little bit about some of these programs and which ones are currently active, which ones are on hold because of the pandemic, if some have, you know, had to change because to, you know, accommodate the pandemic, and which ones people can actually participate in and how.
Okay, well, do you want to start?
I'll remind you on some of these questions.
Yeah, I'll be glad to discuss that. Actually, the IRB works on an important and common goal, which is creating reconciliation and friendship between people and communities of Iraq and the United States. And we achieve this big goal through 3 main streams, actually, or 3 main projects. Humanitarian projects for peace, and people to people project, and Iraqi art project. And each one of these big projects include many campaigns and many actually efforts, personal and organizational efforts that had succeeded in accomplishing the basic needs of Iraqi people, and also in creating some sort of understanding between the cultures of the 2 countries. Regarding the humanitarian projects, actually we worked on different items, including, for example, water filtration systems provided to schools in Najaf. About 80 to 100 schools were supplied by these water filtration systems, and also providing dignity and hygiene kits to Iraqi displaced people inside Iraq in the areas of conflict after the occupation of some territories in Iraq by ISIS. And also the big campaign in this is the Box for Mosul. Actually, we happily confirm that we were able to rebuild the University of Mosul library and supplying it with major books. And as you know, the library of the University of Mosul was burned to the ground after the occupation of the city by ISIS. And we were able to raise a Book for Mosul drive to rebuild the library and resupply it with the basic needs of books and other important things. And in this aspect, we were able to supply the library by about 15,000 books, and we raised almost $15,000 that we used for the cost of shipping and other handling procedures. On another aspect also regarding the people-to-people project, we were able to communicate students in both countries, in Iraq and the US, through letters for peace. Students in each country wrote letters for peace and described their emotions and a sense of friendship and a sense of humanity in these letters, and it was a great thing actually. And also we were able to achieve many community gatherings between the American and Iraqi Minnesotans living here actually on different occasions in the form of picnics and other social gatherings. And also Iraq was active through the Iraqi cultural booth in the annual event of the Festival of Nations. That was an annual carnival happening in the Twin Cities every year until the pandemic, of course, when everything get changed because of the medical restrictions. And also we held many interfaith dialogue group and women's friendship groups. And the main project in this field, in the People to People project, was actually signing a sister city project between the two cities of Najaf in Iraq and Minneapolis in the US. And that was a great achievement, actually. This project was signed in 2010, 2011, and it permits the professional exchange of delegates from Iraq to the US and also from the US to Iraq, which happened in 2012. I think Kathy will talk in more detail about that. The other project that we worked on was the art project, or Iraqi art project. The idea about the Iraqi project is to present an Iraqi and American visual art, films, theater, stories, to make a more intimate rapport between the two cultures and the people of the two countries, actually. And of importance in this Iraqi art project was the Iraqi Voices Lab, which we started in 2012, and it continued till 2017. In this project, actually, the Iraqi Voices App, there was a collaborative art project that gave Minnesotan Iraqi immigrants and refugees the possibility of doing what we call an artistic platform to share their stories, to share their ideas, and to express themselves also as individuals and as a community. Regarding the Iraqi Voices Lab, we were able to publish 9 books and produce 14 short films between 2012 and 2016. And I actually myself produced a short film during this period. And also we were able to perform a big theater act, which was entitled Birds Sing Differently Here. And it was a actually a great event at that time. It brought a lot of sense, a lot of emotions between Iraqis and Americans, and it was very welcomed in different areas of Minnesota. So that was a rapid overview or a short overview of what we are doing at the IRB.
Yeah, good overview, Azar. I could say a couple of things that I've been involved with of those of what Azar mentioned, Liam, unless you have some other questions.
No, that's great. I'm waiting
direction.
to add on to that.
Well, I was a member of one of the women's groups. We've had, I think, maybe 3 women's groups, and the way they're designed is we make a commitment to meet, and there were like 6 or 7 longtime Minnesota women and 6 or 7 Iraqi women, and we made a commitment to meet once a month for a year. And we met in one another's homes sometimes. And of course, as soon as we met in an Iraqi woman's home, there was so much food and so much wonderful food. So then the American women said, oh, we can't just have cookies and coffee. So then it got to be a big food fest, and kind of ended at the end of the year at a woman's house over the Christmas holidays. Her house was all decorated, and so we met in homes. And the other thing we did was went to different sites around the Twin Cities. And as Jamila, one of the Iraqi women, said, we want to go places that American women our age like to go. So we had a tour of the state capitol, and we went to the Rose Gardens, and we, went out to some of the lakes and did things like that together. So that was wonderful. And, we are all lightly in touch via Facebook or at our big events. As I mentioned, we've had a big picnic in September every year until this year, where we have live music and everyone brings food. So there's Iraqi food and non-Iraqi food. And the Americans say, what is American food? Other than hamburgers, everything else is from another country. So that's an example of the women's group. Then there was we met for a year, and then another group started up, and then a young mothers group started up, which was young Iraqi women with their young infants and preschool children, and American women with their young children. And sometimes they'd bring the kids, and it was pretty chaotic, but it was another kind of sharing, So that would be under people to people. And Azar mentioned the Festival of Nations, and we had a young artist, Iraqi artist, young man, made a beautiful replica of the Gate of Ishtar. And there 80 countries had a booth representing their countries, and the Iraqi booth won that year. It was so gorgeous. And the local Iraqi staffed the booth, which was like from 9 until 9 at night for 4 days. And sometimes wore traditional clothing and did, lots of education. It's common for schools to bring busloads of kids come in from all around the state, really, to go to the Festival of Nations. So thousands of kids go through on Thursday and Friday, and then it's open to the public on the weekend, and lots of people. So lots of people saw real Iraqis, and talked to them. And that was it. I think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, just one other thing under the people to people, we had an Ishtar dinner for several years, in which we weren't able to do during the pandemic, but I think maybe 3 years. And we did it a little differently, different times. We had it catered from a local Middle Eastern restaurant the last time, and it was hosted by a big Lutheran church in suburban Minneapolis. And the ministers were there and welcomed everyone. And then we had an imam came and did a little mini lecture on what Ishtar and Ramadan, and I think we had about 100 people there. And we encourage people to mix it up at the tables, don't just sit with your friends. And that's something I think we'll continue to do each year during Ramadan after the pandemic.
I love your description of the women groups. I think that is amazing, because I too, one of the ways that I felt is important for people to get to know each other after seeing the stereotypes, and rather than kind of complain about it and just kind of focus on it. So what I would do is just, it was so easy for me to invite my colleagues over for dinner. That was,
Hmm.
for us, it's just so much fun to serve and to serve our foods. And it's just not just because of the way that we honor guests, but it was also just, it's fun, like Iraqi women
Hmm.
cook. But the relationships that were started from people coming into your homes, I think sometimes it's just as simple as that. You invite people to your homes, they invite you to their homes, and you go. And
Uh-huh.
that's how relationships are formed. And the way you were describing it, I could just envision it, especially the one with the mothers and allowing the kids, because that's another part of our life. And, we're very tribal in the sense that we have kids and we have extended families, and this is just how we operate under
Hmm.
the kids and with the food. So you've really touched on the authenticity of Iraqis and tried to kind of create an intimate way of connection outside of just the other programming that's often done between other countries. So I think the intimacy is very important because that's really where it touches people's hearts, and they don't see it only on an artificial way or in a distant way that really touches home. So that's a beautiful program. That I'm sure, like, is it kind of, I don't, you said like you guys kind of connect remotely, but it's something that I would love to see. And if I was living there, I'd probably, not probably, I'd for sure
In a
participate.
group. Yeah.
I would get involved in that group. So you mentioned some of the ways that the pandemic has affected, some of the programs, but how about regarding some of the political situation that has happened over the years? Has that kind of had any kind of an effect, or are you still able to just focus? It seems like most of the work that you do is not really, it's not because if it's politically driven or not, but just like the delegates coming here and vice versa. Is that an issue or not really?
Well, now it's a big issue since Trump came in. No one can get a visa in Iraq.
Okay.
And um, we had a lot of bad situations, that we don't have too much power to do too much with other than to provide a place for people to talk about things and brainstorm ideas. And, sometimes we would set up meetings with the local senator's office to try and get many asylum cases are on hold. People don't know what's going to happen with that. One of our board members, actually, his wife had gone to Baghdad to visit her grandchildren when Trump dropped the Muslim ban, and was it he was gone or she was, one of them was gone anyway, and the Muslim ban, and they were afraid they couldn't get back in the country even, and many of the local relatively recent immigrants have adult children and grandchildren in Iraq they can't see, they haven't been able to visit. So it's a big problem.
So
Everyone's,
that did create some kind of a stress in the situation. And then, so your focus kind of shifted and we're trying to help people kind of communicate and express themselves because they couldn't come here.
well, it's funny. That's kind of maybe a hidden outcome of the pandemic is getting more comfortable with virtual things and with Zoom things. We've done, we have a current photography show that's still up that has a very nice virtual tour that people can do. And we are pushing that on Facebook and hoping, maybe people in Iraq can go see the art show. We had an opening about 6 weeks ago. It was pretty much all outside, but we had live music, and the chairs were all distanced, and the food was all pre-packaged in small packages. And we think, don't you think, Azar, maybe 175 people came and went for the afternoon. It was a beautiful day, luckily. And so that's still
I
available.
agree. Around 200 people actually attend that event. And we can say proudly that the IARP, although it is a small organization, but we continued our operations despite the big impact of the pandemic. We continue our support to Iraqi people. We continue our major operations. We continue our meetings, board meetings, and we initiated this photography Home of Memories event from October 10th till December 12th. And we did a big in-person opening at that time, as Kathy said, when about 200 people attended the event and shared everybody with food, with live music, with different activities, with ice cream. And it was a big community gathering actually to practice again normal life in the middle of the pandemic. So that was just great.
So that was going to be my next question. Like, how can people get involved these days? You know, and you're right. The pandemic, you know, there, of course, there are so many of the negatives, but one of the things it has allowed us to connect to people that otherwise we wouldn't, such as yourselves. You know, we were more like local and doing programming locally. And then when this happened, we've ended up meeting so many wonderful people and been able to touch base with them because there's no more like, there's no borders between us. There's like the internet.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
allows for us to share our stories. But how can people get involved? Like, where should they go? What can they get involved with? You said you have Facebook up that shows.
Yeah, our Facebook account is pretty active. Azar more competent Facebook than I
Yeah.
am, but we put we have a lot of it. We put information out and, you know, add things a couple times a week at least. And the opening was live streamed on our Facebook page. What else would you say about?
Actually, we are very active on social media, especially Facebook, Instagram, and to a lesser extent on Twitter. But mostly we are very active on Facebook. We do posting like every other day, and we update people actually about different things, not only about IRB activities, but about the medical impact of the pandemic. For example, we just posted, I think yesterday or this day early morning, a video from the Minnesota Department of Health educating people about the safer practices in COVID pandemic.
In
So we
Arabic.
are, yeah, in Arabic, yeah. So we are following up with people, with our communities on that. We are not separated from them in any way. We continue our effort. We continue applying for grants, and we continue getting funded, fortunately. Life is still going, although in a reduced capacity, but we are still doing our best to reach people everywhere.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear that. And we only have a few minutes. So just, I guess, you know, if you could each share some last words about what message, you know, you want to put out there, especially like, why is this work still important and why should Iraqis and Americans still work on having a relationship?
Well, it's been a really rich experience for me. I did get to go visit. 7 of us went for 2 weeks to Najaf, and we traveled to Babylon and some other surrounding cities, and we had a wonderful time. We were hosted by the governor of Najaf province in a small castle that had been one of Saddam's getaway castles. We each had our own room and looking right out over the Euphrates, and it was a wonderful trip. I won't go into all the details, but um, I mean, it's, you know, hopefully we will influence our legislators and there'll be like a ripple effect from normalizing relationships locally between Iraqis and longtime Minnesotans. It will just carry out so that aren't so afraid and so weird, and, you know, so that, I mean, my goal would be that our foreign relations becomes one of, you know, friends working together
Yes.
rather than the suspicion and hostility and, you know, edginess that the U.S. State Department seems to still have towards Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Azar.
Actually, yeah, I have a mission for everybody from the point of IRB. I'm asking everybody not to judge people from a distance. Instead, they should share food, should share their life with everyone before judging people from a distance. We are talking about tolerance, about understanding, about mutual respect, and these are not purely political things that we are working on. These are actually a human instincts that we should exaggerate in ourselves from the inside of ourselves. So this is important on the personal level, not only on the political level.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think one thing we'll take for sure, aside from all the beautiful examples of what your work has been, but that just really us sharing an invitation to each other's home, something as simple as that. Sometimes, you know, we don't have to be, I mean, this is just a great example of what you described, the women's connecting that way. And, you know, it's just so beautiful. So thank you for joining us. Good luck. Best of luck with all the projects that you do. And we look forward to having you again when you have new projects and new ideas to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you very much, the Chaldean Center.
Thank you.
For this opportunity.
Bye, everybody.